We were talking about marriage drift, and of course, thinking about the illustration of when you're going to the beach, right, and you're swimming, and the lifeguards have these flags up, and these two flags sort of indicate the space that you want to swim between, and how easily the current can actually take you away if you're not looking at those flags. So that is what we actually call drift. When we drift away, and drifting naturally happens if we're not focused on staying in one space. In terms of the swimming illustration at the beach, in our marriage, of course, the goal or the flag post that you want to stay between is that goal of being connected, of relational oneness, of being vulnerable with one another and experiencing intimacy. And if we're not being very intentional about staying within those flag posts, drifting is actually a very natural occurrence where over time busyness just takes over and people just drift apart.
There may be people listening in right now, Wynand, who are sitting there thinking, I have felt a little bit out of place, and it has felt a little bit like drifting in our marriage, and maybe they're resonating with what you're describing here. How can we bring some hope to those who are perhaps wrestling with, perhaps feeling like their marriage is drifting?
Yeah, what I'd say to anyone who's in a marriage that's experiencing drift is, hey, it's time to get a new relationship.
Hang on a minute. That doesn't sound very biblical.
Yeah, well, here's what we always say at our weekends away. We say, it's time to get a new relationship with the same person.
Okay.
Right.
So how do we go about that? Because that sounds like quite the overhaul.
Exactly. Look, I love the saying that says, it's never too late to do the right thing or to start doing the right thing. And no matter where you are in your relationship, right now, you've potentially drifted away from intimacy, or maybe you've even gone as far as to not drifting away, but swimming far away or running away. Wherever you are, you can actually go back to that vision of oneness and intimacy. In a few easy steps, and the first is always to start with a conversation. I love the story of that Dave and Ann Wilson shares in their book Vertical Marriage, where a 1 year anniversary, he did the brave thing of asking his wife, on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate our relationship right now? He was giving them like a 9 out of 10. He had this amazing anniversary dinner planned, and she looked at him as like probably a 1.
Oh no!
So, wherever you're at, it's probably a good thing to ask your spouse, on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate our relationship right now? If they say it's a 7 or an 8, which is probably not a bad place to be, you ask the follow-up question: what can I do to take that 1 up? So if it's a 7, what can I do to make that an 8? Questions like that. Ask your spouse, hey, what have you been missing in our relationship? What are some of the things that maybe we used to do when we first met that we're not doing anymore? The real key to remedying marriage drift, if you will, is to start dreaming together again.
So having things to look forward to, is that what you're saying, and sort of a vision that you're both working towards? Because I know that when you have situations in your life, for example, a new phase, like a new child in your life, and that can be very intense, you're under the pump, you're probably not getting a lot of sleep, and then you're not getting a lot of quality time together. Maybe quantity, but not quality time, because there's this little demanding little child in the mix, sort of taking all your attention and all your main focus. So how do you sort of do that?
Yeah. So you're right. It's the quality and not necessarily the quantity. You want to think about what dreaming together looks like. Now, some dreams or visions, say the vision of a family that loves one another, where the home is a safe space where people feel they're connecting. That's potentially a long-term vision. That vision doesn't get established within a week or even a few years. That's a long-term vision, right? Within the busyness of life, like with kids and things busy, you want to have maybe a short-term vision or a short-term dream within that long-term vision. It's like, hey, I've got a long-term vision for our family to be well connected, to have time for one another, to care for one another. But today, when we're really busy, maybe you can have a vision to just say, hey, I want to take 10 minutes before I go to bed tonight to just sit next to my partner, my wife or my husband, and connect, like heart to heart. What are they doing? I'm saying 10 minutes. It doesn't have to be 10. It can be more, actually. But the important thing you're doing is you're prioritizing your relationship. And that's what often happens. People take each other for granted and they stop prioritizing their relationship. We encourage couples, especially if you've got kids and you're in that season of life, if you can take a day or a weekend away without the kids, distraction-free, to focus on your marriage. We always say kids are the outflow of a marriage. That's the fruit of a marriage, having kids. And if we're not prioritizing the marriage, we take each other for granted. Yeah, they've promised they'll always be there, so they will. We tend to neglect one another. So there are many different ways that you can actually prioritize a relationship, planning a vacation, a weekend just for the two of you, or simply even a regular date night. Anything that speaks to your partner saying, hey, I love you and you are a priority for me and I want to continue to grow this relationship.